Welcome back to the show. I'm your host here, Dr. Lisa Olszewski, and I have somebody pretty spectacular here to my side today. I have Dr. Ben Tapper out of Nebraska, and we are going to deep dive into all sorts of information today. And Ben, as I know this is an audio recording, but I love seeing the background that you have there with all sorts of history there within chiropractic. So
Yep.
you're a second generation chiropractor, I believe. Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yep. So, well, my dad's a chiropractor. My sister's a chiropractor. My brother-in-law's a chiropractor, and I'm a chiropractor. So make a long story short, our family functions are a lot of fun. It's a lot of
it.
Yeah. And so, but thanks for having me on your show. A lot of this stuff is too bad that this is audio, but this article right behind me, if you can see it, I'd love to send you the article.
Yes.
But I bought it. I took my staff to Davenport, Iowa, and I gave them a tour of the mansion, and there was a new tour guide there. I took a tour almost every trimester at Palmer. I thought it was fascinating. And there was a new tour guide there, and she was kind of like running through the storage bin of the mansion. And she's like, "Oh gosh, this article's for sale. There's a price tag on it for $10." And it looked, I kid you not, like it was probably sitting there for 60 years. And I said, "Well, can I buy it? I'll give you $10." I would have given her $1,000 for this article. And when I took it home, I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" There's a poster, a chiropractic poster in it here, and the article is a few fearful physicians force funny partial flu frivolates for frenzied folks. A few further firm enforcing fatal flu facts and figures. And it talked about the Spanish flu and how much propaganda, how much corruption, how they're trying to push an influenza vaccine that was experimental. They have the statement from the AMA in 1918 that says there's been no controlled trials adequately demonstrating a decrease in influenza after vaccination. So why would you want to be experimented on? It talks about how BJ says, does a hog fence keep out mosquitoes? We've yet to see the flu. We have on a microscope. So how can we isolate it into a concoction and inject it into people? It doesn't make any sense. And so to this day, if you look at any Fluvaval inserts or any other package inserts on the vaccine, it says, hey, guess what? These vaccines have no controlled trials adequately demonstrating a decrease in influenza after vaccination. So why do you want to be experimented on? And people are forgetting.
Thank you for saying that. That's why I wanted to bring you on. To be honest, this has always been about healthy living, and I have a keto focus and we do all of this. But Ben, I've got to tell you this. The hospitals here are now going to be firing all their employees that won't sign up for an experimental jab. And I am seeing patients, I am seeing, friends that are losing their livelihood because at least they understand that this is an experiment. Because I'm sure you've seen, there's a lot of people that have no idea they are in clinical trials for the next, 2-3 years at least.
That's exactly right.
This is crazy. Yeah. When did you get that from the Palmer Mansion, out of curiosity?
Gosh, that was 2016.
Crazy to think that we're living through it a couple years later.
Right.
Because I think that's.
And I also think that it wasn't a coincidence that I got this article.
No. No.
It was, I think it was a divine moment. It was like, of all the students that have gone through that mansion, of all the students that went through there, all the, hundreds and thousands of students that went through Palmer, I get this article, and it was just so bizarre to me. Like, I'm like, so at the time I thought it was awesome, but now I'm like, oh my gosh, looking at the steps that God brought me here and my journey, I'm like, this wasn't a coincidence.
Absolutely not. I believe that 100%.
The crazy thing is, in this article, they had a front page, like one whole page from the Omaha World Herald, the town that I'm living in. And it talked like this article, I'm like, it was just confirmation that I was meant to have this article. And it talked about like, how isn't it confusing? Like, oh, you can keep these businesses, liquor stores open, but you have to close the churches and everything else. That was the same song and dance they did 100 years ago that you're seeing today. It's like, and so, going back to this is what we need to learn from this as a chiropractor is that we're second century chiropractors, and the same song and dance that they pushed 100 years ago is happening today. So this is I've been telling chiros and I've been saying this, we need to take the reins of this whole corona baloney, and we need to go to the front lines and really bring a message of hope, because hope is a powerful drug. And when we bring a message of true health and healing, because we can very clearly state what it means to be healthy and give that message to the people, people are starving for it. And right now, this whole crony baloney, God is creating the soil for our voice to sprout. And we need to understand that and get out and start speaking out and start stepping up and getting out there. Stick out your jawbone, throw away your wishbone, straighten up your backbone and get to work.
Yes. Right. I love how you just said that. It was something that I'm the president of our Michigan Association here. And I spoke out last year saying we have got to be that beacon of light in our communities for true health and wellness, because people are being fed, and you can tell, and I'm sure you can see it in your practice as well. The people that have 24-hour news cycles on nonstop versus the one that have no idea, right? Like you can just tell as soon as they walk in by their body language what narrative they're believing. So I think I want you to deep dive in case people aren't familiar with who you are. Here's the thought today. Like, as we're trying to get onto this podcast, I never have any issues on my recordings. Like, I do multiple recordings every single week. Today, I can't get onto this podcast. And I told Ben prior to this, and like, I think this might be the powers that be that had it listed that this was a Dr. Ben Tapper interview, because you've been called out as one of the 12 disinformation dozen, right?
Right.
Like, there's people that don't like your message, which tells me you are you are right there speaking the truth. Right. So this all started with you speaking out in Omaha, correct? At the city council?
City council. Well, to rewind, if you've been following legislation, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out they were planning something big. The last decade, we saw draconian legislation chipping away at our medical freedoms. And all I did was try to speak out and protect those rights and freedoms. To not vaccinate. Every state has medical, religious, or philosophical exemptions in the state, and they have to abide by those laws and respect those exemptions. And it was, a lot of people weren't aware of those exemptions. And so when in California, Mississippi, and West Virginia, they succeeded by eradicating religious and philosophical exemptions, and now only allowing medical. So in 2019, I saw a lot of draconian bills coming our way, and I said, oh my gosh, I held a November seminar and a day of a blizzard, and we still filled the conference center here in Village Point, in Omaha. And I said, something big is coming our way. I said, I can't put my finger on it, but I said, something big is coming our way, and we need to be proactive in this fight. And I said, we are going to lose our First Amendment rights here. We have 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. The freedom to petition the government, the freedom to form an assembly, the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, and the freedom of press. And we need to protect those freedoms at all costs. And then when Corona came, it's funny, we had to close down our churches. So there goes the freedom of religion. Freedom of speech has been chipped away. The freedom, you couldn't even petition the government, and you couldn't form an assembly. You can't gather more, 10 people at the time. And now, and the freedom of press, Lord knows we don't have that. And so all of those freedoms are being eradicated, and people aren't even batting an eye about it. And it's really criminal. We need to understand that those freedoms are very, very precious freedoms, and we need to honor and protect those freedoms at all cost. And so we held that seminar in 2019, and then Corona baloney came in 2020. And so obviously I was very leery of this thing, and I said we need to watch this with a microscope, because this is very concerning how there's manipulation of data with the NVSR numbers within the CDC, the National Vital Statistics Reporting System for the CDC. And I talked about, and I have been for over a decade, about the manipulation of numbers when it comes to influenza, how they combine those numbers, bacterial and viral pneumonia with influenza cases. And 90% of those cases that are associated with deaths are usually in the elderly and associated with comorbidities. And the average person over 16 or 65 is on 13 plus medications.
Yeah.
They don't take that in consideration. So I saw this manipulation of data coming, and I tried to blow the whistle on it. I was just a whistleblower. Yeah. And so we had, I would post things on social media, but I'm busy. I'm a dad of 4. I'm a husband. I got to practice, and I'm trying to just keep doing what I'm doing, just going with the flow of things. But then here comes August, we have a mask mandate meeting here. And I actually missed the first meeting, the public hearing. I felt guilty. I lost sleep over it. And I had so many patients like, gosh, where were you? You should have been down there. And I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry. It was Tuesday during my office hours. I didn't want to be there. So then I'm like, screw it. I'm taking the next Tuesday off. I said, I'm going to be down there. I found out there's another public hearing. I said, sweet. And like, this one's the big one. I'm like, oh, thank God. So I can go down there. and there was 13 plus doctors down there for the mask mandate, and they had all the time in the world to speak. And I got up there, I was the only doctor in opposition, and I had 3 minutes. And so when I got up there, I literally prayed, God, turn me into a lion. And and some people might think I'm a little crazy, but I feel like God gave me a vision of David and Goliath when I went up there, and I prayed, God, give me the words to say, turn me into a lion. And I prayed, God, let these words travel far and wide. And I went up there and I look back and like, who was that guy? Like, I just felt like I was just like, rah, I feel like God answered that prayer and turned me to a lion. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I just look at that and it just kind of gives me chills. Like, I can't believe I, spoke like that, and
Yeah.
my mom's like, Ben, you're so angry. I said, Mom, I was passionate. I was convicted. I was in there for 4 hours listening to propaganda and fear mongering. And I always joke with people, and I've said this 100 times, but I always joke with my wife, like, hey, my video is going viral. I got 4 shares, and she's like, that's not viral. Well, but when I spoke there in August, my speech had 3 million views in 24 hours, and it went around the world.
Yes.
And
I remember that. That's my patients. And I was like, Ben, wait, like I know Ben.
Right. And so, the point being, B.J. Palmer said, we never know how far reaching something we may think, say, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow. And that millions now is billions tomorrow.
Yes.
And it's like, your voice matters. We need to get out and start speaking out. And I speak out. I don't do it for publicity. I don't do it for prosperity. I don't do it to take off the president when he calls me out. He called me out yesterday, said I'm killing people. He did. I'm going to post it. I'm going to post a response here to him. And, I'm not his enemy. He's not my enemy. I just want the truth. That's the side I'm on. And I believe full well that we are on the truth. And so, I question his motives and where he is getting his information, and is he for the people, or is he in bed with Big Pharma?
Right.
Because he's trusting Pfizer, who has the largest criminal track record in U.S. history. And we need to, and if you're in bed with them, I question, are you fit to lead this country and these people?
Right. Let's talk about Pfizer. That's one of the things. I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan, right? So Pfizer was huge here, and then they left several, maybe almost a dozen years ago now. But I'll tell you, people, because of the Ann Arbor Pfizer pride, they lined up for that shot right away. And I'm sitting here thinking, I know the history of Pfizer. So let's talk about the history of Pfizer. We can talk about some of their lawsuits. And so this way, people just understand. That way, I've always been that person, like, let's get all of the information and then make an informed decision. And we know exactly what happens when people get all of the information and they make an informed decision. It's when you've got the information, there's only one direction that you're probably ending up. So let's talk about the history of Pfizer for sure.
Pfizer has the largest track record, fraudulent criminal activity in U.S. history. Multiple times, they've been convicted and settled in court for bribing doctors to mislead the people. They paid out a $2.3 billion plea deal for suppressing adverse reactions to their products. Does that sound familiar?
Right.
And bribing doctors and misleading public officials and the people. That's why Biden thinks that I'm killing people, because who do you think they're getting information from? Pfizer. Right. I love that meme. It's like, has Mrs. Doubtfire, but it's like calling Mrs. Doubt Pfizer. Anyway.
But you know what it is, and I think this is something, like, you and I have been talking about vaccinations for a long time with our people. Mm-hmm. This talking about it being a great awakening, people are waking up, right? All of a sudden, people now know about VAERS, where how long has it been people have not known about VAERS? I'm even noticing, just even the other day, I looked at somebody, I was like, but do you understand? Because they were speaking about sterility and all sorts of stuff like that. So it pulled us into an HPV conversation with that HPV vaccine. And I was like, do you not understand that the placebo, when you had just said, made me think of this, the placebo for that was injecting straight up aluminum into an arm. So when they looked at the side effects from the placebo versus that of the shot, hey, they weren't any worse than the placebo, but who in their right mind? Like, again, if you dig into the research, we can really truly make an informed decision. So what else, like, what are some of the things that you're seeing within your patients?
Well,
as people,
there's a lot. I mean, just with, I've been keeping track, 13, so stroke wise, 13 plus patients had friend or families that had strokes within like 48 hours of this vaccine. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just here in town. So if I keep a track of that, how many other people are having issues? And then these doctors are phenomenal at diagnosing, but they're not phenomenal at finding the cause.
Right.
Big difference, right?
Yes.
So, there's a big difference there. And, to give you an example of that, I had probably, I think it was in 2018 or 2017, within the same week, I had a patient come from Syria, and he was a mid-30s. He was a dad of two and nice guy. And there was a language barrier, and he had a translator in my office. And he came in, but he couldn't even barely walk. He was in severe pain. He had hyperesthesia, he had neuralgia, and he was diagnosed with transverse myelitis. And and his health records were very much well organized, well put together, and from like it was all in order. And from his first appointment to his last appointment, and he brought this big binder in to bring to me. Well, he was in my office, and I was reading through the documents. And when he first got to the country, he's like, I was fine. I had no issues. It's only like the week I moved here, I had issues. And I'm going, And I've studied vaccines and everything else. I'm looking at, neuralgia, okay, hyperesthesia and transverse myelitis. Wow, that sure sounds like a vaccine injury to me. Those are all 3 for 3 on a vaccine insert. And so he's like, I had a hepatitis B and a Tdap. So I pulled up because he had the Tdap and hepatitis B right on the second day he arrived in the U.S. And within 48 hours after that, he had all these issues. And so, and the doctors, they did a phenomenal job at diagnosing him, but they don't it's from the vaccine. They said, we don't know what it's caused. They said idiopathic. That was one of the, it was an idiopathic cause. We don't know. And I'm just like, you don't know. And I'm not even, I'm not even in the field of vaccinations. I am, but I'm not. I don't administer them, but it's like I study them, and I'm like, dude, you just look at the cause. It's the vaccine that caused it. And Nick, brave like Nick, he was an audiologist, I believe, in the Army. And that same week, he was a healthy dude in the 30s. Same thing. He had a DTaP, and he got almost identical symptomatology as this guy from Syria. He got, transverse myelitis and neuralgia and hyperesthesia, and it's all due to the vaccine. And transverse myelitis, we name the conditions, but really they're all, in my observation, it's all the same. Like is Guillain-Barré, as polio. Polio. People are like, well, polio. What about polio? When you always go to the vaccine, well, what about polio? Poliomyelitis. Polio means gray, and it's the and myel is spine, and itis is inflammation. And we diagnose polio by observing, the key word observing, inflammation in the spinal cord. And we look back in history and say, hey, if we don't know what it is, we'll blame it on a virus. And that's what they did with polio. And that's what they did with, like scurvy. But, we found out scurvy was a vitamin C deficiency. But if you look at poliomyelitis, it's the inflammation of the gray matter of the spinal cord. And, but I look at that from an observational standpoint and say, okay, well, what's different between Guillain-Barré, meningitis, and transverse myelitis? It's all the same. It's inflammation of the spinal cord. And, then when you start going down the rabbit hole and looking at the mechanism of injury and the onset, and how it enters the nervous system, and saying, wow, we got inflammation in the nervous system, then you're going to explain, can it cause sclerotic lesions? Well, sure can. Well, sure enough, MS is a side effect on the hepatitis B and other vaccines. You get the inflammation in the spinal cord, you're going to get sclerotic lesions. Gosh, I wonder if it can cause muscular dystrophy. You get demyelination. Well, that makes sense. Inflammation from chronic inflammation probably eats away the myelination of the tissue and starts causing demyelination. And you're going to have all these other conditions. And I believe Alzheimer's is a vaccine issue. And, if you look at the autopsy reports of Alzheimer's, it's always a luminal bioaccumulation in the brain and the blood-brain barrier. Looks like Swiss cheese. But not only that, but my whole argument with vaccines, I would maybe be supportive of a vaccine if you breathed it in or took it in, maybe. But if it was nutrients, there's not a single nutrient in a vaccine. And not only that, but when you break the skin barrier, you go against the laws of immunology and laws of physiology. Yes. And people say, well, you don't have an immune system. These babies don't have an immune system. That's why we need to vaccinate. And see, we can create, you get the antibodies after 2 weeks after vaccination. See, it's working. And I'm like, well, what antibody are they testing for? They're like, well, the titer, the antibody. I'm like, well, can you tell me what that is? And they can't even tell me. And I said, well, what they're measuring for is a titer of immunoglobulin M. And so we have different antibodies are known as immunoglobulins. We have different immunoglobulins. I name them IG for short. You do too. Everybody does, but mostly don't know about it. But you have IgG, IgA, IgM, IgE, And when you vaccinate, the first immunoglobulin to respond is IgE because you inject it in the blood.
Yep.
And that IgE is releasing inflammation and it's doing its job. That means the immune system is very functioning very well, going, intruder alert. We need inflammation. And what happens, the most dangerous thing is when we have inflammation that releases histamine, allowing that to enter into the nervous system, because histamine opens the blood-brain barrier or makes it permeable, allowing aluminum adjuvants and nanoparticles and other MSG and other crap to enter in the nervous system, causing problems. And people wake up. That's why these vaccinations are so harmful. So when people say, are you anti-vaccine? And I'm just going, I'm pro-health. I'm pro-information. It's like, vaccinations, I don't care how you word it, I don't care how you spin it, will never be superior than the natural immunity in the body, the innate intelligence inside the body. Do we have more faith in a vaccine or a concoction than the innate intelligence that animates the living world? And that's the thing. God made the body self-healing, self-regulating. That innate intelligence telling your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, your cells to communicate. We need to trust that system.
Absolutely. I love it. And did you go through the ICPA diplomate or no? I remember the one instructor that was the neuroimmunology guy used the best example in trying to explain between Th1, Th2 immunity, et cetera, et cetera. But he just said, and you just said it was like a red alert, right? But that's what he said. It was like, think of everybody lined up at the bar and all of a sudden you've got this huge bar brawl that's happening. It just is this huge alert that's going on versus somebody walking in and saying, hey, we might have something, happening. Let's just be kind of calm. We'll figure it out versus that. So that's been something that's always stuck in my mind since that course, however many years ago. I remember walking and saying, if I had children, I know what I would do. I was 99.9% sure. I walked out 150% sure knowing what I would do. So so great information. What about, have you seen all of the bit about this new with the vaccine and it having a completely empty insert in there? I've had a couple of people tell me that from within the pharmacies.
Right. I went to the pharmacy. I said, can I ask?
Oh, did you get it?
I asked for the inserts. And so it literally, she made me wait a half an hour.
I didn't know this.
I sat at Walgreens for a half an hour and I made it awkward because I just I didn't leave. I think she was just waiting for me to leave. And then she came around the corner. She's like, oh my gosh, she's still there. And I'm like, waiting, hello.
Yeah.
And so finally, I hear the printer go on and she prints off like 30 pages off this website. And I said, no, I want the package insert. I said, I can go to mine for the flu. She goes, we don't have inserts. I'm sorry. And I said, you don't have an insert. And she wouldn't give it to me. I know they have these inserts. It's just a print. It's just paper.
Yeah. So interesting.
How many times these right? So they wouldn't give it to me. So I've been asking my followers, go to Walgreens and CVS and Hy-Vee and ask for the inserts to these vaccines because you'll just get a blank piece of paper. But
that's I've heard had a couple people tell me that.
Right. So that's the funny thing is that none of this stuff makes sense. All this stuff, there's so many flaws, all the flaws in the narrative. The only one thing that's bizarre to me is the sense of smell. I know that's, people are losing their sense of smell. So it makes me wonder, I'm always going like, is corona baloney? Is it, people are like, is it a legit virus? And I say, you know what? I don't like the name corona. I don't like the name COVID-19. You just need to call it what it is. Do you have a respiratory condition?
Yeah.
And no flu? Yes. And call it a cold. You had a cold. Okay. Yeah. Did you have a flu or a fever? You had a fever? Okay, then let's call it the flu. That's it. Don't call it COVID-19. Don't call it influenza A, influenza Z, Zika, swine flu, whatever you want to call it. Because once they do that, it's never going to end. That's why you're going to have Delta variants. You're going to have COVID-22, COVID-23. It's never going to end. And if we just need to simplify, which means to remove the unnecessary and just get back to being simple and saying, oh, you had a fever, you got the flu, go home and rest, take some C, get some rest, get some water. I fast if you ever feel ill, and you'll feel better. Get adjusted. And, back last year, earlier, what is it, July now? It's probably earlier when Corona baloney first started going around. I was like telling people, come and get adjusted. Come get adjusted. Yeah. They're like, I had Corona. I'm like, good, come get adjusted. You'll be fine. And I was getting a lot of flack from my colleagues. I had all these criers like, screenshotting my post and like sharing it. I'm like, this guy doesn't even follow me, but he's like blasting me. And he said, this guy said he's get adjusted. And then people say, well, chiropractic doesn't boost the immune system. And I thought that was, oh my gosh. I said, I wanted to slap you in the face. I said, not you, Lisa, but I said, these other doctors, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I put on a big old, I had to re-educate them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the vagus nerve, when you adjust this segment, it will innervate the vagus nerve and stimulate the spleen and release, antibodies and everything else and white blood cells. And I look at, some of these colleagues and I just go, what are you thinking? Telling people it doesn't boost the immune system.
You can tell where people went to school.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's terrible.
Yeah. All right, Ben, I know you're on your lunch break, I'm assuming. So what else can we share and how can they find you? For right now, I'm assuming you're probably going to be removed off of all social channels.
Well, I just want to be real with you and the people listening to this is like, it's very serious. Like, I didn't think my name would ever be dropped on global news and national news, and the White House is calling me out. I mean, that's scary stuff when you really think of it and think about it. And, my parents and my family, they're all concerned. And I just want to leave your listeners with just a little bit of hope and maybe some insight. But this is a battle between good and evil. Whether you realize that or not, or believe that or not, this is a battle between good and evil. Mm-hmm. I am a man of faith. I believe in Jesus. I believe in the Lord. I believe that He's called me to defend this post. And I'm going to walk that lonely road and I'm going to defend it. And no matter how much persecution I take and how many threats I get, we are on the right side of history. And when
Amen.
Yeah. And so the president of the United States, says I'm killing people. What does that mean? And if he's right, then maybe I should just be quiet and not speak out. But I don't think I'm wrong. I believe I'm right. And that means if he's saying that, and if he's wrong, then he should be, I don't believe he's fit to be in office. Right. Because he's leading the people astray, and he's going to cause more problems for the people.
And I've been saying it a long time that it's good and evil, and you have to believe God wins, right? People look at me and they're like, and I was like, we can't have the alternative. We can't even allow that to show up in our mind. And so that's where, in taking this podcast for this next season and really just hammering in the truth, I laughed with actually Dr. Guy Riekman the other day. I said to him, I've got a pretty decent ranked podcast that I might take right to the ground, but we've got to get the truth out at this point. Right. It is, and this is coming from somebody, I will say, I have a friend that died of COVID. My life has totally changed in the last 6 months. However, that being said, when he went into the hospital, you'll love this. You won't love this. This will really make you angry. All supplements were confiscated. When he asked for certain things, no, that's not safe or effective. Mm-hmm. So exactly how he ended up dying was not because of this diagnosis that ended up on there. Because again, how much, I know you're hearing it too. I've had people tell me that one of their family members dies of cancer and they get a call from the health department to change the diagnosis code. This is insanity. So thank you for stepping into this role that you're playing. I know that you are you asked God to help you, and holy moly, God has given you a microphone.
Right.
So thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me on here. And, it's just crazy. I encourage people to look at what the ACIP, look at the vaccine summit, first of all, in 2019. And just listen to the presentation, what they did. They took out "In God We Trust." They put "In Vaccines We Trust." And they're trying to fight vaccine hesitancy the end of 2019 and try to get a game plan for that. And if you look at the Jesus statue, they're in Brazil, they put "Vaccine Saves." They lit up the statue and put "Vaccine Saves" over Jesus's chest. And then the vice president said that, the Bible, the vaccinations or getting your vaccine is the very essence of what the Bible teaches, and that's why I'm like, what is
aborted fetal cells? Really? I don't think that was in my Bible.
Right. And I just question, so what about those that don't want the vaccine? You still love them?
Right.
Because the Bible I read says, love the sinners, love the people that
Yeah.
need love. It's easy to love people that love you back and do good things for you, but
And that are
really,
like-minded.
yeah, grace means undeserving love. And that's what the Bible teaches. And so that's the Bible I believe in. So Lisa, you're awesome. I just pray the time is now.
It is. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm so appreciative of you. So thank you for sharing the truth. It's amazing. I do love how chiropractors have stood up to this, right? Yeah. Oh my goodness. There's like a half a dozen of you that are all in different states doing some amazing things. So there's more than that, but I think of people running for office and everything right now. Like, it's pretty spectacular.
It's crossed my mind many times.
You would be, yeah. It would be awesome. All right. Well, sir, thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and keep doing what you're doing.